Right. So good morning, everybody. I'm really delighted to see you here and to recognise some of the faces that have joined us this morning. It's great to see that people join us from all over the place. So today I wanted to reflect on imposter syndrome and share some of the learning from my journey, from being the only woman on my master's programme of 45 to my PhD when I was a chemist who jumped into physics and then into engineering manufacturing. And then somehow along the way found myself the UK national expert on women in science, which was an amazing surprise to me. So this webinar is for you if you want to speak up and be heard so that it can impact on your career. Maybe you're frustrated and stuck and your energy is being a bit sapped. Maybe you're smart and you understand the need to have a simple and effective system that can help guarantee you promotion. But maybe it's not for you if you've got all the luck in the world and you're absolutely happy where you are, that you don't understand that you need to put work in and master your craft and your inner self and your talents to get the results that you really deserve. Or maybe you're just someone who jumped from free webinar to free webinar, which is absolutely fine. I've enjoyed watching so many fascinating webinars over the last year. So today it's about, if you really want to know how strengths can work for you and the things that people aren't really talking about the elements that you must have to get over imposter syndrome, how to be the best version of you, but also how we here at Katalytik can help you shine. So a little bit of housekeeping. I'm hoping to be talking for about 30 minutes and then open it to some Q&A and general conversation. Please engage and be active. It makes it a bit more sort of connected and engaging. And I really like it when people have comments, positive and negative. It all helps me to learn. Do take lots of notes and do give us some feedback. Tell us how we're doing and how we could improve and do better. And then afterwards, we've got a little gift for you. We're going to send you a checklist of things to work on. So why have we created this webinar? Imposter syndrome seems to be something that strikes a lot of people, and even people you wouldn't necessarily expect. And I'm somebody who's worked in semiconductor physics and instrumentation manufacturing, and it wasn't necessarily the career that I had expected as I started out with my chemistry and oceanography first degree. But over the last 10 years, I've been really working to understand the reasons behind the persistent low numbers of women in engineering, the challenges that continue to face people who are typically underrepresented minorities. And I've wanted to understand more about how we can build inclusion and engagement, both as colleagues and managers. What can we do to improve the situations and experiences for other people? And I've come to the conclusion that we have to start with ourselves. And along that last 10-year journey, it's been that journey as a strengths coach and understanding the power when we focus on what's right with ourselves rather than fixating on what's wrong with us. So a little bit more about that later. I think over my career, there's been many times when I've been caused, in a sense of inadequacy, uncertainty, self-doubt. And then not least of all, when I was collecting my MBE, it's like, why me? Why now? What have I done that makes me stand out? I just did the things that were there for me to do. And that took me quite a bit of time to get over. And it took me a couple, maybe even 3 years before I put it onto my LinkedIn profile. And that was only because somebody was having a big campaign about getting women to put their titles, and I even then put my doctor onto my LinkedIn too. And I don't know where that came from, and maybe some of it came from the fact that I started out as a chemist and ended up working in engineering. But I also, when I was working in the semiconductor physics industry, I was working with lots of physicists, and they have a particular kind of humour. And I was the lone chemist in the division. And I always felt like their intellectual humour was about testing me and trying to call me out. And I kind of felt like devalued. I was always having to work hard. I was having to justify myself, and it left me deflated, devalued, and dismissed, not least by the head technician when I was doing my PhD, who one day as we were walking over to the labs casually commented, don't know why they let you girls do PhDs, you're just going to go off and have babies. And those words rang around my head for a long time. The reality is, though, that I had a job that I absolutely loved as an engineer in manufacturing. It gave me the chance to travel across the world, worked with many creative, innovative scientists and engineers, solving problems, improving their systems and processes and devices. Absolutely loved it. But it became a bit more challenging. I really wanted to be down on the South Coast. I wanted flexibility. And that's the point when I really started to notice the differences that were available to men and to women. And it wasn't I wanted flexibility to do childcare or elder care. I wanted flexibility to leave on a Friday afternoon to go windsurfing. I wanted the flexibility to start half an hour later on Monday so that I was commuting from my weekend retreat and my boyfriend's house in Christchurch where we sailed to get back up to Hemel Hempstead. And it was just draining me. And so I set about changing things for people, for other people, and working to change the hours and the systems in the whole factory and whole site. And so I just been reflecting on it, and it's like, was that imposter syndrome, all those feelings over the years that have compounded into me, and how have I learned to deal with them? So what is imposter syndrome? You know, some of those things I've mentioned. It's about self-doubt, incompetence, always comparing yourself to other people, about not being your true self. Well, I want to measure up, I want to be better, I want to learn. Really wanting to do more technical stuff, realizing that sometimes we just need to learn how to be a better version of ourselves so that we can do more and have more influence with the technical stuff. But the reality is that imposter syndrome can lead to burnout, inadequacy, underperformance, and that continual beating ourselves up. So I wonder how many of you have had those feelings. Just, you know, do they resonate with you? Put some comments on the chat. Is that something that's really chiming with you? And I think one of my wake up moments about imposter syndrome, and then it wasn't just about me or a couple of people, it can strike anybody. I was at an event at the Royal Academy of Engineering, and the jet lagged keynote speaker had literally just stepped off a transatlantic flight, and she stepped up to the podium and said a few words. And then she went off piste and she said, I'm no role model. I'm just a hardworking academic. I'm not the one who should be standing here. And I've heard her since say it more than once privately. And then another equally eminent scientist said, I never believed in myself. I still don't really. I've always just been lucky. Someone else always believed in me more than I believed in me. I'm just another scientist. And I can see the comments in the chat. Yeah, you feel it regularly. And The Guilty Feminist, that's obviously a good book to read. Thank you, Tenny. And it's about how we're taught, particularly as women, but it's not just women, of course, but it's that you need to be better, you need to behave, you need to do this, you need to be right. It becomes something that we start internalizing. And I wonder whether the humility of the damehood, so those eminent scientists and engineers I just mentioned, and the unguarded comments really does show how we're all capable of feeling not worthy. And that imposter syndrome can become something that is really just debilitating. I like this analogy that, you know, when you that first feeling, you might notice it and you just go, oh, what was that? Brush it off. And it's just a little feather that lands on your shoulder. But sometimes you don't notice that the feathers landed on top of you, for whatever reason it might be, whatever cause, whatever comment you've heard. But over time, you might feel you've got a lot more feathers on you, until sometimes you're buried in a ton of feathers. And we all know what a ton of feathers feels like and looks like. It's a pretty heavy weight, isn't it? And so one of the things we want to do today is look at how we can shift that journey to and how we can learn to brush those feathers off before they become too heavy to move. I can see in the chat there's people suggesting books to read and symptoms to read. And then someone said, I always feel I was lucky. They picked me by coincidence when you get a new job. No, they didn't. You shone on the day that you went for that interview. Really great sort of insights into the way that it feelings. So how can we shift? How can we start to learn about how we can know what defines us and what essence we bring to the work that we do and our interactions with others, and how we can help others when we notice them shrugging things off, saying, hey, that was just luck, because we know it wasn't just luck. If it was just luck, you wouldn't be able to repeat it consistently. So noticing imposter syndrome is one of the really important things. To being able to name it is a really important first step. Knowing that you are able to, it's not just about luck, it's not just about timing. And knowing that it can disempower you, knowing that you can start brushing those feathers off one layer at a time. It's about knowing that sometimes the inside is buried our inner warrior, and how can we learn to notice and find that inner warrior and understand what it feels like when we're able to embrace our true inner warrior. How can we internalize success and hold on to the belief around what we're competent at and what we're capable of? And how do we know whether we've what that really is? And how can we know the difference between imposter syndrome or just self-doubt? Maybe it's because self-doubt is something that you're able to go back and revisit. But sometimes self-doubt, the inner chimp that we all have, eats away at us. Sources of imposter syndrome come from a number of different places. Sometimes it's about the politics or the culture of where you are, whether you're the chemist working amongst all those really clever physicists, really smart people who've got different names for the same theories that you've got. But those are the things that give you that momentary pause before you respond to them. Maybe it's because you are in the minority, the chemist in the physics situation I talked about. Maybe it's because you're a woman in a man's world. Maybe it's because you're from another minority underrepresented group. Maybe we're it's those small comments that we sort of collect, and we start thinking, if everybody's saying that all the time, that maybe that's true. And maybe those are the things that we need to just be able to understand, notice, grasp, and look at them and be objective. Because I think most of us on here are scientists and engineers and go, I'll dismiss that because I know it's not true. So interrupt the comments that are being collected by your inner chimp and sort of and be able to deal with it. Screw that piece of paper up and throw it away. Jeannie Kane says, I'm starting to believing and saying I make my own luck. So right, absolutely. And somebody else in the chat saying, maybe it's worse as academic engineers are measured against scientists, which doesn't seem in industry. So Roger's an engineer, not a scientist, and he's maybe feeling an outsider in an engineering department. Yeah, that is right. So this is a kind of an internet definition of imposter syndrome. It's a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist even in the face of the information or evidence to the contrary. So that's something for us as scientists and engineers. Be objective about it, understand what it really means. You may look at it and say, it's easy for me to brush the feathers off. Great, you've got a PhD, you've got an MBE, you've written some reports that have had some really great feedback and results. So what can you do to start rewriting your own superhero story? And how can you frame your own story? How can you sort of, capture those chronic self-doubt and feelings of fraudulence? Because it can happen to anybody. And we're going to talk about the kind of things that we can do to help you in a moment. But this is a quote, this is a story of an academic in a psychology department who one day suddenly was supporting people and helping people understand their problems. And he was suddenly struck by this sort of, he said, I felt, give me the right to be here, helping and telling and showing other people how to do things better. He said, I wasn't just questioning whether I could survive. It was more fundamental. I was asking, am I actually a swimmer? He was in this sea, in this river, and it suddenly became overwhelmed by that sense of inadequacy. So what can you do about it and reframe it? I'm particularly taken by Tenny's She calls it a sod it box. We used to have a saying at Cam Aywise. That's really, I love that, fantastic. So it can strike anybody. But what is the biggest problems for scientists and engineers? And from all the people we've been talking with over the last few years, I think that engineers make three key mistakes. They focus on the technical aspects of everything that they do. They're always wanting to learn the latest piece of coding. They want to learn the latest risk assessment method. They want to understand what's happening in different industries and different areas. It's very focused on technical competence. And those are the things that we grade and rate each other by continually as we go through our careers. But we also tend to be continually trying to prove that we can do it. It's so fundamental to what we do, being a competent engineer, being able to meet the criteria, being able to stand up in front of our peers as really sound people who are technically capable. But also, I think we're also, more than many of us will stand up and say, not worthy. We don't believe that we're capable of it. What if we could reframe what we're doing and spend a bit more time and investment in ourselves and take a little bit of time? So am I covering things that you were expecting so far? So is that all great? Maybe you can put a thumbs up or use some emoticons in the into the chat. Let us know if we're going too fast or too slow. And so it's always good to get a little bit of feedback. So how can we help you to re-find your mojo? How can we help you focus on your self-awareness and identify your greatest fears and understand how you can really work on your strengths, on your innate talents to be your best version of yourself? Over the last year, we've done a lot of coaching sessions supporting early career Black engineers. We've worked with early career engineers as well in group coaching sessions. And we've been doing a lot of learning about the things that people need and how we can create spaces where people can not just have a coach as just one person, so it's one-on-one. We found some people find that's really too intensive. There's all the focus of a coach on you, asking you questions. And some people like more time to reflect. They don't like to be able to have an hour and just have to respond there and then. They need to take information away and process it. Their thinking powers are the things that are their superpowers. Amazing people to work with in a group. Sometimes they ask huge amounts of questions, and that can be really beneficial. But sometimes they don't share everything that they're thinking. They may be worried that people might judge them for what they're thinking, but they might also be feared for just thinking and not actually getting things done. So we understand that sometimes people really enjoy mixing and sharing their learning journeys and self-discovery with other people. A big mantra that's around at the moment, Eric Schmidt from Google says everybody needs a coach. And what we've discovered in engineering is that not everybody believes they're worth investing in with a one-to-one coach. Not everybody wants a one-to-one coach. Not everybody can afford a one-to-one space to have a coach, where you might be spending 200, 300, 500, £1,000 for sessions. It's something that for so many people, it's just not an option. And so we explored coaching clubs, creating a space where people were hearing challenges that others had, which added to their learning bank as managers, and were able to then practice coaching questions. We introduced people to different styles of questioning, and we gave people reading material and resources. And we were able to build this community with groups of people that varied from 8 up to 20. And it really built this sense of belonging, and it created accountability partnerships. People would come with a challenge or a problem they were facing, and they could hear from other people how they'd had a similar experience and how they could respond to it, and became this really powerful, closed, safe space that people could connect and share with other people. So we want to grow that. We want to help people to disrupt their inner narrative, breaking the silence and realizing that those feelings are just normal. We're all like that. Some of us just more so. Some of us more sensitive to the inner chimp going, really? Could you? You? No. But of course, that's just the inner monkey. And we need to just interrupt that space and and get our thinking aligned in a slightly different way. But, you know, it's a 6-stage process you can go through in terms of tackling your imposter syndrome. So write those 6 stages down, you know, breaking the silence, normalizing it, knowing it's not just you, separating your feelings from the facts, changing the thoughts and behaviors that you're having, and then letting your feelings catch up with the thoughts that are going in your head and the pattern that's resonant with imposter syndrome, and reframing those fraudulent feelings and translating them into learning and growing. It's easy. If I asked all of you, what's your most memorable mistake? I'm sure all of you could come up with that quicker than if I asked, what's your biggest success? But the important thing about mistakes is understanding what was the learning from it. I'm laughing at Tenny, who says chimps aren't monkeys, the inner biologist. Thank you very much. I know that my son would be giving me exactly the same message. And so it's great. There's always something to learn. So we want to help you change your narrative and help you to stop comparing yourself from others and find your inner compass. And I want you to think about the sort of things that you could do. So within our Momentum Coaching Club, we want to bring groups of people together so that we can help you to connect with other people and go through those whole 6 stages. We want you to be able to really sort of access that space. And we want to give people getting my slides mixed up here. So the 7-stage slide, yes, I'll snip that. Helen's nudging me. I will snip the 7 stages at the end and post it into the chat for you. So those 3 deadly mistakes that those engineers keep making is about finding problems to fix. Is that familiar to you? A continual desire to improve your technical skills, and then not spending enough time focusing on you, because there are always other people that need more of your time, whether it's your colleagues, whether it's your significant other, or whether it's your parents, your family, your friends. There's other people that become first before you. So what does the Momentum Coaching Group, what can it offer you? It can offer you this monthly space to come together for group coaching sessions, learning coaching techniques yourself, but access to certified strengths coaches. It's an online private space as well, that's available all the way through between the monthly group meetings. We're providing worksheets, an online chat, but also that all-important Clifton Strengths coaching. And Clifton Strengths is about focusing on what you do right, not worrying about what you do wrong. It's about understanding the things that describe you. So, for example, for me, I've often been described, and particularly as a child, I was the bossy one. And then when I did my Clifton Strengths, I discovered that I had command. I was the one who would speak up. My kids drive, I'm the embarrassing parent for my children, because I'm the one in the restaurant that says, there's something wrong with this food, asking the head teacher to use the microphone at the end of year concert, because none of us could hear what she's saying. And it was my voice that goes, excuse me, put my hand up. And that's my command. It's not about being bossy. It's not about telling people what to do. It's about stepping in when things aren't going right. So group coaching is about helping other people tap into their superpowers, the things that's the inner them, the things that make you unique. Within the coaching space, it's about creating meaningful conversations where we introduce you to new frameworks and tools so that you can feel that inner need to learn about new things, about focusing on your non-technical side so that you can apply and inspire other people to do better work by being more of yourself and not trying to be somebody else. Helping you to understand what drives other people so that you can adapt to what other people need from you, but helps you understand what other people need to be your best. In one of our coaching groups last summer, we had a lady with a Clifton Strengths called Discipline, who said quite confidently, I've never lost anything in my life. Very organized, very structured, an amazing individual. And other people in the group were very let's get going, let's get started now. Let's try this, let's try that. Lots of creativity and ideation going on. And it was interesting understanding the different things that those people brought to an engineering project. I think importantly, though, it's that safe space and allowing people to connect and provide support to each other, that working in a demanding technical space, they're able to tap into these things. So it's around focusing on what you do right, not what you do wrong. What's interesting, though, by using the strengths approach to you, is that you start being able to become more fulfilled at work, because you can tell your boss or your colleagues what you bring, but what you need to be your best. But what's also interesting is it enables you to be more energized at home as well. It enables you to understand your significant other and those people that you share your living space with. And it allows you to manage your weaknesses and turn them down a little bit, or ask people or share them and give them a name, so that you can then call them out and go, that's my ideation getting in the way again. Sorry, it's stopping us from finishing something off. So it's really interesting how once you start tapping into your talents and your Clifton strengths, it enables you to become sort of like proud, secure in the knowledge of the value that you bring into this world. So within the coaching club, we give you resources, videos, worksheets and briefing documents, but strategies for dealing with things and prompts as we go through. With the club, we give you an onboarding call where we understand what your goals and challenges are, so we can make sure that the structure of the group is tailored to the needs of everybody. We invite people into quarterly mastermind workshops where we focus on particular things that people are interested in learning, bringing in different speakers too. And those people who are attending the live event, we're offering a bonus strengths insight session where we help you unpack your Clifton strengths. We do use Clifton strengths for everything. We absolutely think it's an amazing tool to just give the name and understand the sort of the factors that can cause you particular challenges in different situations. So I'm unapologetic about that. And because we think this is a really important thing that people should be able to tap into, we want to make sure that anybody can think that they're worth spending £47 a month on. And so if you buy it all year, you get the last 2 months of that free. I know some of you'll be thinking, I don't have the time for that. But, you know, we record things and we create accountability partners. Other challenges, you might think it might not work for me. That's fine. We'll just give people their money back. And what's the catch in not joining in? We've tried really hard to think of one, but we couldn't think of one. So how can we help you change your narrative? And I think Helen's put some information in the chat. So if anybody's interested in finding out more about it, with absolutely no pressure at all, it's just exploring whether it's something that might be interesting for you or someone you know, is just put send Helen a direct message or put it in the chat saying give me a call, or you can just sign up on the link to the Microsoft form that we'll be putting into the chat later. And so we want to just help you. What are the 5 things that you can take away from today to help you change your narrative? Because I didn't want to invite you along today, not give you anything as a takeaway, and just say we've got a really exciting new coaching club that we're offering. So the first thing I want you to start doing is noticing yourself, noticing what you're doing and who you're with and what it is that you're doing. And really just start thinking about, what do you feel like when you're doing those things, and hold on to them. The second thing I want you to do is find a bank of words that are positive, that describe you. Things that you can really tap into and join up and go, yeah, I am. So I can now say, I'm not bossy. I am able to step in when things aren't going right. I can step in and correct something that's wrong and is causing problems. But I'm also now self-aware enough to know that sometimes I need to ask permission from other people before I step in, because they may have another strategy in mind and I might not have listened enough. So create that bank of words, that are positive for you to use about yourself. The third thing I'd like you to do is create a gratitude jar. Now, some people might sniff at those. You can create a digital one or a physical one. So when you're doing something that's really good and positive, or you get a bit of good feedback, write it on a piece of paper and put it in a teapot that you don't use or in a jar on your shelf. And when you're feeling a bit rubbish, just open one out and go, oh yeah. And if you're feeling really rubbish, really low, pick out a couple more. Do put them back in, because believe me, they are reusable, eminently reusable. And that's, that's that sort of brush that feather off your shoulder kind of thing. And also, number 4, I want you to think about, what are your strengths? What are your innate talents? What are the things you got praised for as a child? Because those are the things that stay with us through our lives. Like I was the bossy child, I was also the activator. I was always the let's get going now. I was always front of the queue for teachers to ask when people wanted somebody to do something. I didn't want to wait to know what the plan was. I just wanted to get started. And that for me is an absolute superpower when I'm in a group. I don't know how or why, I'm able to create energy in the group. I typically will listen to everybody and find out what people want to do. And I'll then like, hey, let's do this. And because I've listened, lots of people want to do it and I get great feedback. But there's always somebody who will sometimes step up and say, we always do what you want. The reality is the only thing I want is to be busy and to do. I don't really mind what it is. So I'm quite flexible in that kind of way. So knowing what your greatest talents are, what your strengths are, what do you bring to your project, your work group, your family? It may be that you have a love of learning as a child. So look back to your childhood. You were always reading books. Maybe you're collecting things. So maybe you just love knowledge and information. So when you're organizing some things, nobody's deciding where to go on holiday, tap into those talent themes that you have and be the person that enjoys going and finding information and bringing it into the space. And the 5th thing, Eric Schmidt says it, I said it earlier, is find a coach or a mentor, because as Jennifer says, you're worth it. And I think those are the kinds of 5 tips I really love you to take away. And another thing is that you really shouldn't do is don't compare yourself to others. What's better, an apple or an orange? They both give you fiber, they're both sweet, and they both got vitamins in them. So they're both really great things to eat, unless you're allergic to them. But don't compare yourself to anybody else. What's better, a pencil or a pen? Obviously, if you're an astronaut, a pencil is the best thing, although NASA spent I don't know how many millions researching a gravity-free writing implement, and the Russians just used the pencil. But they both write, they both communicate, they both convey information, they both help people share their feelings with other people. So being able to understand who you are and what your authentic self is, knowing that Tenny brings enthusiasm and excitement to projects and initiatives, and I can vouch for that, absolutely. Cambridge AYs were, hugely benefited by her contribution to that. So what I want you to do is take some time to find your inner warrior, understand what that warrior looks like and who that warrior is and who you want it to be, and start choosing and shining and polishing the different aspects of your inner warrior. So imposter to superhero, you're only an imposter when you're trying to be somebody that you aren't. So spend more time focusing on who it is that you really are and really tap into that. I hope that's been really an interesting insight into the journey from imposter to superhero. And I'd love to see your thoughts and comments and feedback in the chat. And also, I'd really be delighted to invite you to ask some questions around the whole space of imposters and superhero, and also the Momentum Coaching Club, of course. So thank you. And I'm going to stop screen sharing.